What if the ocean, the last free frontier on Earth, was no longer free? Not because of war, not because of climate collapse, but because someone bought it. Right now, corporations are leasing vast stretches of the seabed. Private firms are selling fishing rights like stock options. And billion-dollar companies are claiming ownership of genetic material found in marine life that has existed for millions of years. This is not a prediction. It is already happening. The world's salt water is being carved into assets, priced like property, and packaged into profit, because when everything on land has been sold, there is only one place left to exploit, and it lies beneath the waves. This is the ocean for sale. For thousands of years, the ocean was a mystery, a vast, untamable expanse that belonged to no king, no empire, no flag. Sailors feared it, traders crossed it, poets worshipped it, but no one owned it. It was the last true commons, a realm without borders. But in the 17th century, that idea began to shift. A Dutch jurist named Hugo Grotius wrote a radical text called Mare Liberum, or the Free Sea. It argued that no nation could claim the ocean because it could not be enclosed. No fences, no deeds, no dominion. Centuries later, that idea was reversed. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, signed in 1982, marked a turning point. It created a global framework that gave states sovereign rights over vast areas of the ocean, up to 200 nautical miles from their coasts. These were called exclusive economic zones, and with that stroke of international law, the ocean was no longer free. What began as cooperation became codification. Nations now had the legal authority to mine the seabed, sell fishing rights, and regulate access. The sea, once ungovernable, was mapped into zones, turned into charts, reduced to percentages. This was not conquest, it was contract, and it set the foundation for what would follow. Because once the law defines ownership, markets are never far behind. The ocean became something that could be leased, licensed, and litigated. Beneath the surface, freedom gave way to extraction. What was once a wild frontier of mystery became a spreadsheet of value. And with each passing year, more of that value is claimed. By companies, by states, by investors. The tides have not changed, but the meaning of the ocean has. It no longer floats outside the reach of power. It is now inside the system, and it is for sale. Once the law gave nations the right to claim the ocean, it did not take long for business to follow. Beneath the surface lies a new frontier of profit, not in fish or ships, but in metals, molecules, and markets. Countries like Papua New Guinea began selling access to their seabeds. Companies such as Nautilus Minerals and the Metals Company signed contracts to extract rare earth elements buried deep below the waves. Manganese, cobalt, and nickel, vital for batteries, phones, and green technology hidden in fields of black nodules scattered across the ocean floor. But this was not mining as we knew it. It was speculative, experimental, entire ecosystems disrupted before they had even been studied. And the companies behind it were not traditional miners. They were startups backed by venture capital and traded on stock exchanges. Some had never turned a profit. Some had never even drilled. What they sold was not metal. It was the idea of future ownership. Above the surface, a different trade began to emerge. Fishing quotas, the right to harvest certain amounts of fish, became financial instruments. Hedge funds and multinational firms began buying up these quotas. They were no longer just permits. They were assets. In Iceland and New Zealand, in Norway and Chile, quotas were sold, leased, and even used as loan collateral. Fish became numbers on a ledger. A population of living beings turned into a portfolio. And in the deep trenches of the ocean, something stranger was happening. Scientists discovered sponges and microbes that survived in boiling sulfur vents. Their chemistry was unique, their DNA untouched. Pharmaceutical companies began patenting molecules found in these creatures. They called it bioprospecting. The ocean became a biological goldmine. The sea was no longer just blue, it was coded in value. A wild ancient ecosystem was being measured, monetized, and divided, not by sailors or statesmen, but by bankers and algorithms. The ocean had become a stock exchange, and every species was now a ticker symbol. The ocean is being sold as sustainable. Deep-sea mining is described as essential for green energy. Fishing quotas are called responsible management. Patented marine genes are promoted as breakthroughs for human health. The message is clear. We are not exploiting the ocean. We are saving it. And the language is powerful. companies speak of the blue economy, a vision of growth that protects ecosystems while unlocking new profits. Brochures show coral reefs and clean beaches. Press releases talk about innovation and balance. But beneath the surface, the picture shifts. The same companies promising sustainability are preparing to dredge thousands of square kilometres of seabed. Scientists warn that these areas host fragile ecosystems that have never been mapped. Some species may go extinct before they are even discovered. Deep-sea ecosystems are not resilient. They are ancient and slow to recover, if they recover at all. And while corporations polish their green credentials, governments quietly subsidise their operations. Taxpayer money funds the ships, the research, the licenses. Nations pour billions into fleets and equipment. In many cases, public money underwrites private extraction. The incentives are backwards. The more you exploit, the more you qualify for support. Meanwhile, the data tells a darker story. 80% of global fish stocks are either fully exploited or overexploited. Entire species are collapsing. Tuna populations have declined by over 60% in some regions. Coral bleaching events are becoming routine, and yet the illusion holds. Sustainability is the marketing. Collapse is the reality. Because as long as there is a profit, someone will call it progress. The ocean is packaged as a solution, but it is being used as a sink for risk, for debt, for depletion. So we must ask, if the ocean is now a market, if it can be bought and sold and traded, who ensures it remains alive? Who protects the sea when everything in it has a price? This is not the first time nature has been measured in profit. On land, it began with fences. Enclosure movements in Europe turned shared fields into private property. Forests once held in common became timber assets. Rivers were dammed, diverted, and sold. Even water itself became a commodity. And now the sea is following. Today, corporations lease ocean space for mining. Patents are filed for marine life. Fishing rights are packaged into financial instruments and sold across global markets. What was once vast and open is now subdivided and claimed. This is the financialization of nature. Fish are not just food, they are assets. Quotas are not just limits, they are securities. Ocean ecosystems are now valued not for their beauty or balance, but for their return on investment. The logic is familiar. The more efficiently something can be owned, the more easily it can be sold. And this shift has consequences. Coastal communities that lived with the ocean for generations are losing access. Small-scale fishers and indigenous groups are forced to compete with industrial fleets backed by global capital. Traditional rights mean little when profits dictate policy. In some regions, families that once fished freely must now buy back the right to their own waters. The ones who knew the tides by heart are told when and where they can fish, if at all. Ownership has replaced stewardship. And the irony is sharp. Those who lived in balance with the ocean are pushed aside. Those who profit from extraction call themselves guardians. A quiet inversion has taken place. The market now decides what deserves to live. We are witnessing the same pattern that transformed forests, rivers, and cities. The same systems that hollowed out land-based economies are now mirrored at sea. And as one scientist put it, markets have become the measure of morality. But the ocean does not speak in numbers, and once its balance is lost, no price can restore it. What happens when the last common space is sold? When every wave is leased, every species licensed, and every trench signed over to a balance sheet? The ocean was never ours. It was not meant to be divided. It was not meant to be priced. Yet that is exactly what we are doing, turning the origin of life into a ledger. But not everyone accepts this future. Chile made headlines when it reversed the privatization of fishing quotas. Pacific Island nations have begun challenging deep-sea mining agreements. Some countries have banned seabed extraction altogether. There are cracks in the system. Resistance is growing, not just from scientists, but from coastal communities and legal scholars. From those who believe the ocean cannot be owned. And that belief matters, because the ocean gave life. It gave weather, food, and movement. It connected continents and cultures. Now we return the favour with patents, trade codes, and debt obligations. Ownership has replaced stewardship. Contracts have replaced care. But stewardship cannot be written in legal clauses, and care cannot be collateralized. We are not too late. There is still time to ask a harder question. Not just how do we save the ocean, but who decides what saving looks like. This is not about halting progress. It is about defining its cost. Because the truth is not that the ocean is too big to fail. The truth is that we were never meant to own it in the first place. And maybe the measure of a civilization is not what it builds or claims, but what it refuses to sell. If this gave you a new perspective, do not just scroll away. Hit subscribe. This is Economic Chronicles, where history exposes the present and the future is written in the lessons we refuse to learn.